Picture this. You're standing in a jungle so dense it swallows the sun. The air smells of smoke and blood. Thousands of voices chant your name, not in worship, but in hunger. You're tied to a cold stone altar, staring up at a priest in a jaguar mask, his obsidian blade glinting under a blood-red sky. He's not here to save you. He's here to rip your beating heart from your chest. Welcome to the world of ancient Mayan sacrifice, where death wasn't just a punishment. It was a sacred gift to gods who demanded blood. This isn't some Hollywood horror flick. This is real, documented history, and it's so brutal you'd beg for death just to escape the terror. Stay with me, because we're about to uncover why the Mayans spilled rivers of blood, and why you wouldn't survive a single day in their world. Hit that like button if you're ready for the darkest history lesson you'll ever hear, and let's dive in. Let's set the stage. It's 700 CE, deep in what's now Mexico and Central America. The Mayan civilization is at its peak, a world of towering pyramids, star-chasing astronomers, and cities carved from stone. These weren't savages. They were geniuses. They mapped the heavens with math that rivals modern computers, built aqueducts Rome would envy, and wrote books that survived centuries. But there's a shadow over this brilliance. The Mayans believed their world hung by a thread. Their gods, Kukulkan the feathered serpent, Chak the rainbringer, were hungry, and not for gold or prayers. They wanted blood, human blood. Why? Because the Mayans thought the cosmos would collapse without it. Every sunrise, every harvest, every victory in war depended on one thing: sacrifice. And not just a drop or two. We're talking thousands of lives every year, men, women, even children, offered up to keep the gods happy. Archaeological digs at sites like Chichen Itza and Tikal prove it. Stone carvings show priests holding dripping hearts. The Dresden Codex, a surviving Mayan book, spells it out. Blood was life, and death was power. Here's where it gets chilling. This wasn't some rare ritual saved for special occasions. Sacrifice was the heartbeat of Mayan society. Imagine living in a city where every month you'd hear drums echoing from the pyramid, signaling another life was about to end. War captives, slaves, even nobles. Nobody was safe. Archaeologist Stephen Houston estimates that major Mayan cities like Tikal sacrificed thousands annually, their blood painting altars red. Cenotes, sacred sinkholes, were dumping grounds for bodies, and excavations have found hundreds of skeletons, some with cut marks showing their hearts were torn out while they were still alive. These weren't quiet, private deaths. They were public spectacles, with crowds cheering as priests climbed pyramids to offer hearts to the sky. Why so much blood? The Mayans believed every drop fed the gods, keeping the sun rising and the rains falling. Miss a sacrifice, and the world might end. Sounds extreme, right? But to the Mayans, this was as normal as going to church. Pause for a second. Could you live in a world where your neighbor's death was the price of survival? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think. Before we get to the gruesome details of what it felt like to be a victim, let's talk about why this matters. The Mayans weren't just killing for fun, they were desperate. Their world was harsh. Droughts, wars, and famines could wipe out entire cities. Sacrifice was their way of controlling the chaos. Priests who doubled as astronomers timed rituals to cosmic events like equinoxes, when shadows on pyramids like El Castillo formed serpents, proof the gods were watching. These weren't random acts of violence. They were planned, sacred, and terrifyingly precise. But here's the hook. What if you were chosen? What if you were the one tied to that altar, staring into the priest's eyes as he raised his blade? That's next. And trust me, it's worse than you can imagine. Stick around, hit subscribe, and let's find out why you'd beg for death in a Mayan sacrifice. Up next, the ritual that made warriors scream. Alright, you've seen the Mayan world, pyramids piercing the sky, gods demanding blood, and a civilization obsessed with keeping the cosmos alive. Now let's get to the part that'll make your stomach turn, the actual process of a Mayan sacrifice. This wasn't a quick, clean death. It was a slow, agonizing ritual designed to please the gods and terrify everyone watching. Picture the scene. It's 750 CE, and you're in the heart of a Mayan city. The air is thick with incense and dread. Drums pound like a death. And someone, maybe a warrior, maybe a noble, maybe even a child, is about to face a fate so brutal, it's hard to believe it was real. Stick with me, because this is where things get dark. If you think you can handle it, drop a comment saying, "I'm ready." Let's dive into the horror. First, let's talk about who ended up on the altar. The Mayans didn't just pick anyone. War captives were the most common. Enemy soldiers dragged from battlefields, their armor stripped. their pride broken. But it wasn't just captives. Nobles chosen for their high status, and sometimes even children seen as pure offerings, could be selected. Archaeologists like David Stewart have found evidence in Mayan texts, like the inscriptions at Copan, showing that victims ranged from grown men to kids as young as 6. The gods weren't picky, but the priests were. They wanted the best offering, someone whose blood would carry weight in the heavens. Imagine the terror of being chosen, knowing your death would be a public spectacle. Could you face that fate without breaking? Let me know in the comments. Now, the ritual itself. Brace yourself. It started with preparation, and it wasn't gentle. Victims were often painted blue, a sacred color meant to mark them as divine gifts. Sometimes they were fed hallucinogenic drugs, morning glory seeds or fermented balche drink, to dull their senses or make them see visions of gods. Sounds merciful? It wasn't. Those drugs could trap you in a nightmare, your body paralyzed while your mind screamed. Then came the march. You'd be led through cheering crowds up the steep steps of a pyramid like Chichen Itza's El Castillo. Every step brought you closer to the altar, a cold slab of stone stained black with the blood of thousands before you. The crowd's roars would drown out your thoughts, their excitement feeding off your fear. Pause for a second. Could you keep walking, knowing what's at the top? Share your thoughts below. Here's where it gets gruesome. At the altar, 4 priests would grab your arms and legs, pinning you down. A 5th, the high priest, dressed in jaguar skins and feathers, would loom over you, holding an obsidian blade, razor-sharp but jagged, designed to tear as much as it cut. The heart sacrifice, called chab, was the main event. The priest would slice open your chest right below the ribs with a single brutal cut. Medical historian Vera Tisla says obsidian blades were so sharp they could split bone, but the jagged edges made the wound agonizingly messy. The priest would reach in, snap your ribs apart, and rip out your still-beating heart, holding it high for the crowd to see. You'd be alive for those first few seconds, feeling every moment of pain unimaginable. Your heart would be offered to the gods, burned in a brazier, while your body was either decapitated or tossed down the pyramid steps like trash. Excavations at Chichen Itza's sacred cenote found hundreds of skeletons with these exact injuries. Proof this happened over and over. But heart sacrifice wasn't the only way to die. Some rituals were even crueler. In arrow sacrifice, you'd be tied to a stake, painted with targets and shot with arrows, slowly. The goal wasn't to kill you quickly, but to make you bleed out, your blood dripping onto the ground as an offer. Other times, victims were thrown alive into cenotes, sacred sinkholes where they'd drown or starve over days. Skeletal remains show some survived the fall, only to die in agony, trapped in the dark water. The Mayans believed every drop of blood strengthened the gods, so the longer you suffered, the better. Which ritual sounds worse? Heart sacrifice or arrows? Drop your vote in the comments. Why so much cruelty? To the Mayans, this wasn't just death. It was theater. The rituals were timed to cosmic events, like solstices, to show the gods were watching. Priests planned every detail, from the victim's paint to the altar's angle, to maximize divine impact. The crowd wasn't just there to watch, they were part of it. Their cheers a prayer to the heavens. It's hard to wrap your head around, but to them, this was normal, even sacred. That's what makes it so chilling. We're not done yet. Up next, we'll put you in the victim's shoes. Every scream, every second of terror. If this is already too much, hit that subscribe button for more dark history, and let's keep going. You won't believe how much worse it gets. You've heard about the Mayan world and the gruesome rituals that soaked their altars in blood. But what was it like to be the one on that altar? Let's step into the shoes of a victim, a warrior captured in 750 CE and lived through the final moments of a Mayan sacrifice. This isn't just history, it's a nightmare you can't wake up from. Picture every scream, every heartbeat, every second of terror. If you think you could stay strong through this, drop a comment saying, "I'd survive," but trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why you'd beg for death. Let's go then. You're a warrior, maybe 25 years old, captured after a battle against a rival Mayan city. Your wrists are bound with rough rope, cutting into your skin as you're dragged through the jungle. For days, you've been marched toward the city of Chichen Itza, your captors chanting hymns to their gods. You're exhausted, starving, but the real terror starts when you see the pyramid. It towers over the city, its steps stained dark with blood. You know what's coming? Everyone does. The Mayans don't hide their rituals. You've heard stories of hearts ripped out, bodies thrown into sacred pools. Now it's your turn. Your heart races as they paint your body blue, the color of a divine offering. The paint is cold, sticky, like it's sealing your fate. They force you to drink a bitter liquid, balche, laced with hallucinogens, according to archaeologist David Stewart. It clouds your mind, makes the world swirl, but it doesn't dull the fear. If anything, it traps you in a haze where every shadow feels like a god watching you. Could you keep your cool knowing death is hours away? Share your thoughts in the comments. The march to the pyramid is a blur of noise and heat. Crowds line the path, shouting, chanting, their faces painted with excitement. You climb the steep steps of El Castillo, each one feeling like a countdown. Your legs shake, not just from exhaustion, but from dread. At the top, the altar waits. A slab of stone carved with grooves to catch your blood. 4 priests grab you, their hands like iron, pinning your arms and legs. You're stretched out, helpless, staring at the sky. The high priest, draped in jaguar pelts, looms over you. His eyes are cold, focused, like he's done this 1,000 times. He holds an obsidian blade, its edge glinting in the sun. You try to scream, but the crowd's roars drown you out. The worst part? You've known this was coming for days. Mayan inscriptions show victims were often paraded, fed, even honored before their death, a twisted celebration that made the final moment hit harder. Imagine knowing every detail of your death, hour by hour, with no way out. Would you fight or give up? Drop your answer below. Now, the moment you've been dreading. The priest raises his blade and the crowd falls silent. You feel the first cut. Sharp, searing, like fire tearing through your chest. Medical historian Vera Tiesler explains that obsidian blades were brutally effective, slicing through flesh and bone, but their jagged edges made every cut a torture. The priest reaches in, snapping your ribs with a sickening crack. You're still alive, gasping, as he grips your heart. The pain is beyond words. Your body screams, but your voice is gone. He rips your heart free, and for a fleeting second, you see it, still pulsing, held high for the gods. The crowd erupts in cheers as your vision fades. If you were lucky, death came quickly. But some victims lingered, conscious for agonizing moments, their bodies broken on the altar. Your corpse might be decapitated, your head displayed on a skull rack, or thrown into a cenote to sink into the dark. Excavations at Chichen Itza's sacred cenote found bones with cut marks, proving this wasn't myth, it was routine. Pause and think, could you endure those final seconds? Let me know in the comments. Why would you beg for death? It's not just the pain, it's the helplessness. From the moment you were captured, every step was designed to strip away your hope. The Mayans didn't just kill you, they made you a spectacle, a gift to gods who never answered. The drugs, the chants, the waiting, it all built a terror so deep it crushed your will. Some victims, per Mayan texts, screamed for mercy. Others went silent, too broken to fight. Either way, the end was the same. This wasn't random cruelty, it was a machine of death, perfected over centuries. We're not done yet. Next, we'll uncover why the Mayans thought this horror was worth it, and how it shaped their world. If this shook you, smash that subscribe button for more dark history. Up next, the shocking reason behind these rituals. Stick around. You won't believe what drove them. We've walked through the blood-soaked world of the Mayans, felt the terror of their victims, and seen the gruesome reality of their sacrifices. But why? Why would a civilization so brilliant, masters of math, astronomy, and architecture, spill rivers of blood in rituals that make your skin crawl? This wasn't mindless violence or some savage whim. The Mayans had reasons rooted deep in their beliefs, their fears, and their fight to survive a brutal world. Let's dive into why they thought this horror was worth it, and why, to them, every heart ripped out was a prayer to save the universe. If this shocks you, drop a comment with the emoji that sums up your reaction. Let's see it. Stick with me, because the truth is as fascinating as it is chilling. At the core of it all was religion. The Mayans believed their gods, like Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, or Chak, the rain god, weren't just powerful. They were the glue holding the cosmos together. The Popol Vuh, their sacred book, says the gods created humans to worship them, and worship meant blood. Without it, the sun wouldn't rise, the rains wouldn't fall, and the world would end in darkness. Imagine living with that pressure. Every drought, every storm, every lost battle was a sign the gods were hungry. Anthropologist John Watanabe explains that sacrifices were like cosmic fuel, keeping the universe running. When a priest held up a beating heart, it wasn't cruelty. It was a desperate offering to keep the stars in the sky. To the Mayans, blood was life, and giving it to the gods was as vital as breathing. Could you believe in a god that demanded your neighbor's life? Share your thoughts in the comments. But it wasn't just about pleasing the gods. Sacrifices were power plays. Priests and kings used them to control their people, to show who was in charge. Picture a city like Tikal packed with thousands watching a sacrifice. The drums, the blood, the priests' chants. It was theater, designed to unite the crowd in awe and fear. Archaeologist Stephen Houston notes that rulers often led rituals, proving their divine connection. A king who offered a captive's heart wasn't just a leader, he was a god on earth. Sacrifices also kept enemies in check. Captured warriors, humiliated and killed in public, sent a message: cross us, and this is your fate. It was psychological warfare, as much for the living as for the gods. Think about it. Would you dare rebel against a king who could order your heart torn out? Drop your answer below. Here's what makes it even wilder. Some Mayans chose to die. Yes, you heard that. Nobles and even commoners sometimes volunteered for sacrifice, believing it was the ultimate honor. Inscriptions at Palenque describe elites offering themselves, thinking their blood would earn them a place among the gods. Imagine the mindset, walking up that pyramid, knowing you're about to die, but believing it's your ticket to immortality. This wasn't rare either. Texts show women, men, even children stepping forward, painted blue, ready to face the blade. To us, it's unthinkable, but to them, it was a sacred. The Mayans timed these rituals to cosmic events like solstices or equinoxes, when the gods were closest. At Chichen Itza, the pyramid's shadow forms a serpent during the equinox, a sign the gods approve. It's haunting to think they saw your death as a divine necessity. Would you volunteer for that? Let me know in the comments. There's another layer: survival. The Mayan world was brutal. Droughts could starve cities, wars could wipe them out. Sacrifices were their way of fighting chaos. If the rains failed, a priest might say Chak needed more blood. If a war was lost, Kukulkan was angry. Every crisis had a solution: another heart, another life. Excavations at sites like Calakmul show mass sacrifices during droughts, with dozens of bodies tossed into cenotes. The Mayans weren't heartless. They were desperate, clinging to a belief that blood could save them. But here's the twist. It wasn't just about gods or kings. The whole community bought in. Crowds cheered, priests planned, even victims sometimes accepted their fate. It was a system, a machine of faith and fear that kept their world spinning. That's what makes it so eerie. It wasn't one mad priest, it was everyone. What do you think? Was this faith or madness? Drop your take below. We're almost at the end, but there's one last piece to this bloody puzzle. How does this connect to us today? What can we learn from a civilization that turned death into devotion? Hit that subscribe button for more dark history, and stick around for our final segment, where we'll tie it all together and reveal what this means for you. Trust me, the Mayan story isn't just ancient history, it's a mirror to our own fears. Coming up, the shocking legacy of these rituals. We've journeyed deep into the heart of the ancient Mayan world, where blood was power and sacrifice was the price of survival. We've stood on the steps of their towering pyramids, felt the terror of victims facing the obsidian blade, and uncovered why a brilliant civilization believed ripping out hearts could save the universe. It's a story that's equal parts horrifying and fascinating, a glimpse into a world where faith and fear collided in the most brutal way possible. But before we leave this blood-soaked jungle, let's take a moment to reflect. What does this tell us about the Mayans, about humanity, and about ourselves? If this journey shook you to your core, smash that like button and drop a skull emoji in the comments to show you survived this dark history lesson. Let's wrap this up and see what it all means. The Mayans weren't monsters, at least not by their own standards. They built a civilization that rivaled any in history, with cities, science, and art that still leave us in awe. But their world was unforgiving. Droughts could starve thousands, wars could burn cities to the ground, and the gods they worshipped demanded a price no one could ignore. Every heart torn out, every body thrown into a cenote, was a desperate plea to keep the sun rising and the rains falling. Archaeologist Stephen Houston says the Mayans saw sacrifice as a sacred contract, a deal with the gods to keep chaos at bay. To us, it's barbaric, but to them, it was survival. Imagine living with that weight, knowing your life or your neighbors could be the difference between a good harvest and starvation. It's a mindset so alien it's hard to grasp, but it shows how far humans will go when they believe the stakes are everything. What would you sacrifice to save your world? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear. Here's the kicker. The Mayans aren't as far from us as you'd think. Their sacrifices were extreme, but they came from a human need to control the uncontrollable. Today, we don't offer hearts to gods, but we still wrestle with fear of climate change, of war, of uncertainty. The Mayans turned to blood to calm their fears. We turn to science, politics, or faith. But that drive to make sense of a chaotic world, it's universal. The Popol Vuh, their sacred text, says humans were made to serve the gods, but it also says we were given the gift of understanding. The Mayans used that gift to build wonders and to commit horrors. Their story is a mirror, showing us how far we'll go when we're desperate, and how belief can justify anything. Pause for a second. What's the modern equivalent of a Mayan sacrifice? Maybe it's not blood, but is there something we give up to feel safe? Share your take below. It's a question worth thinking about. This isn't just ancient history. It's a warning. The Mayans' world collapsed, not because of sacrifices, but because of droughts, wars, and overreaching empires, as excavations at sites like Tikal show. Their rituals couldn't save them, but they left us a legacy of beauty and brutality that still haunts us. Chichen Itza's pyramids stand as proof of their genius, and the bones in its cenotes scream of their desperation. This is why history matters. It's not just about the past, it's about understanding who we are and what we're capable of. If this video made you rethink the Mayans, hit that subscribe button and join us for more dark history. We've got plenty more stories that'll keep you up at night. Before you go, let's make this a conversation. What shocked you most about Mayan sacrifices? The heart rituals, the cenotes, or the fact that some volunteered? Drop your answer in the comments, and let's see who's got the gutsiest take. If you want more gruesome tales, click the video on your screen to uncover a ritual so dark even the Mayans feared it, or binge our playlist on ancient horrors. It's linked in the description. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a dive into history's shadows. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Unless you're headed to a Mayan altar, in which case, good luck. You're gonna need it.